We're back, and today we're going to test out a new video idea we've had lying around for probably a year.
Yeah.
So basically the idea is we're going to take a movie, which if you can't tell behind us, it's Aladdin, and we're going to talk about the games based on that movie, and more so like not if the game's good, but more so does it follow the movie and how well does it follow the movie. So,
and is it playable?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
And if you've played some classic NES movie-related games, you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you'll know why that's in there.
Yeah. So we tried to kind of rank these as without as much opinion as possible. So I
non-biased.
As much as we can. There is some opinions in there, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But anyway, before we get started with that, we'll talk about how the rank system or the however you want to call it, works. The reason we're doing this, obviously, if you don't know, there is a new live-action version of Aladdin coming out.
Yay!
So as far as talking about the movie, I don't think there's much to talk about. I mean, if you've seen,
you've seen the one.
Yeah, I
You've
mean,
seen them all.
But I mean, it's
Aladdin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic movie. I mean, there's nothing I can really think negative to say about it. I mean, it was just a great movie. Great songs, great casting, of course. Robin Williams at his finest. But with the new movie,
Rest in peace.
Yeah, sad. But and it would be interesting if he was still alive, what they would have done.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you think about the upcoming live action movie?
I'm super excited for it. So when I heard that Will Smith was Genie, that did kind of throw me off because I really wanted it to be just like a generic voice person, like a no-name, because I think that takes away from what it is. Just like putting Robin Williams in there the first time, it kind of feels like they're using that as a selling point, and it made me nervous that it wasn't going to be good.
Yeah.
But after seeing the trailers, I am so excited, and I really can't wait to see it.
The first trailer was not very good, in my opinion. I was not at all excited. I was like, well, this is going to suck. The second trailer, though, was a lot better. And I've noticed that recently with a lot of movies. Like, the first trailer just doesn't really do much for me, but then the second trailer comes out, and I'm like, okay.
Real Jin.
Yeah, but let's be honest, I still think the Genie kind of looks awful. At least when he's in his Genie form. And I'm not the only one who believes that.
Yeah.
A lot of people do. But I think my biggest problem with him casting Will Smith is, I mean, let's be honest, it might just be me, but apart from him, I don't really know anybody else in this movie. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing.
I like it when they do that, especially for big name movies like this, because it helps me immerse a little more into it.
Exactly.
Instead of going, where have I seen that person from?
Yeah.
God, I know that I've seen them in something. And then I start connecting all their movies together and I miss the whole scene.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, obviously he was thrown in there to get like a big name star. I mean, obviously because nobody knows what Aladdin is. But I do feel like that's why he was thrown in there. And I'm sure he'll do a good job. And from what it looks like, he's throwing his own twist.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw in one quick opinion. We're not going to talk about this too much, but I was kind of thinking of who else they could get to cast him, and I can honestly never remember his freaking last name. But the guy that played Homer on The Simpsons, because he voiced the Genie in Return of Jafar, because Disney had a falling out. Well, Robin Williams kind of had a falling out with Disney, and he did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but let's be fair, he kind of did imitate Robin Williams, but he did a good job of it, in my opinion. And I think that would have still been respectful and also nostalgic at the same time if they would have done it. But I understand why they didn't.
Yeah, and I slightly have to disagree.
I don't know. I think
because they're going to have him in his human form.
I honestly think it would have just been better to have it just be CG entirely.
Yeah.
Because that's just my
opinion. I was going to say, the way it is now, I feel like having someone who's does well in front of the camera is great. But if it was going to be CG all the way, that would be
I think it'd be cool. So anyway, there's 3 games we're going to talk about. Some of these games were ported to other systems, so they're basically the exact same game, so we're not going to dig too deep into that. But essentially, we'll be talking about the Game Gear version, the Sega Genesis version, which is the one I played as a kid, and the Super Nintendo version. So, basically, the way our ranking system works is 3 of the categories are the soundtrack, so whether or not it actually features music from the movie, because I think that's important. Presentation, does it look like the movie and as best as it can? And that's important.
You have to consider the system, though.
Yeah.
So, what its capabilities are.
And again, that might be, you might think that's a stupid category, but if you played, again, some classic NES movie games, you'll know why we're doing that.
Yeah.
Gameplay. Is the game playable? So all of these are based on just either 0 or 1 point, and if we're kind of on the fence, half a point. The one we're going more in depth with is the story. So the way we're doing that, actually we'll touch on that when we get to it. But so let's start off with the Game Gear real quick. So as far as the soundtrack goes, we gave it a 1 because there's easily recognizable songs. Presentation, again, for the Game Gear, this looks pretty good.
Looks really good, yeah.
It looks really good in my opinion. Gameplay, it's a little bit different, obviously, than the console versions, but still playable in my opinion. So
yeah, I gave it that one because, you know, sometimes I want to take a half point off, but I also have to consider that I am a noob, and it's very difficult for me to do things. So the way I establish it is if I can play the same level less than 5 times and beat it, it's playable.
Yeah.
So
and there's not too much. I mean, the controls work fine. There's not a whole lot of cheap moments that I at least came across. So it works out pretty well. So that's where we went with that one. By the way, if editing looks weird, it's because she's sick and constantly coughing.
Yes, I have a cough drop right now.
So, but as far as gameplay goes for the Genesis version, I prefer this one over the others. That's just my opinion. It's not just because I played it as a kid, but I don't know. I kind of like it because you got the sword and it's a little more action oriented, so to speak. I mean, it gets difficult at times, especially the carpet ride. If you played that game, you know what I'm talking about. So this was exciting because I had never played this as a kid. I was under the impression it was the same game. It's not. So I was super excited to actually finally pick this up and try it out for this video. And it's, definitely a completely different game. So,
well, yeah.
Gameplay-wise,
like I'm
yeah,
surprised.
right, yeah.
Like, huh?
Well, she had never played any of these before, but this one, the gameplay style is a little bit different because I kind of make it out kind of like, what is it, parkour? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Because you're like bouncing off things. You can bounce off enemies. You can chain attacks. You can like swing off stuff. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it is kind of reminiscent of what he does in the first part of the movie. Like, he's jumping and hopping all over the place. So, I mean, there you go.
Yeah. I will say my biggest complaint with this is kind of the level variety because instead of there being like different stages, like the stages are sometimes broken up into 3 different parts. And I kind of felt like it dragged out. But I mean, that's just my opinion. It's still a good game. I enjoyed it for what it was. So, that's those quick points there. Story. So this is where things get a little bit more in depth. So I had a hard time trying to figure out how I wanted to do this, and again, trying to leave opinions out as much as possible. So what I decided to do this time was basically touch on every point that each game makes. Even if another game doesn't make that point, we're still going to touch on it.
Yeah.
And it'll either get, again, a point, no point, half a point, or sadly, in some situations, it's going to take away a point. And you'll see why here in a little bit. So, since a lot of the stages are very similar in each game, we're just going to kind of go down the line. So, the intro. So, with this one, the Sega Genesis version doesn't have an intro.
At all.
Yeah.
Like, skips the whole... So, by intro, let me clarify. We're talking, like, Gazim, the first little guy that goes into the Cave of Wonders and gets eaten up. We're talking him.
Yeah.
So that's the intro of the story that leads to Aladdin. And it doesn't even have him.
Nope.
That doesn't even tell you anything.
The Super Nintendo version in the Game Gear does. It actually, before the game starts, actually before you even press start, you know, it has a little intro. It leads you into the story, but the Genesis is gone. And didn't quite notice why until we started really digging deep into this, and we'll get to that. So next up, both the game, or all 3 games kind of start off in the streets of Agrabah, which we all give a point on this, because, I mean, It's just kind of where you start off, right?
Yeah.
It's Aladdin.
Well, the Super NES, we did a half a point per section.
Yeah, so the
because
reasoning...
it broke it up into 3 different sections.
So the reasoning for that is because like the Genesis game had a lot more different stages, where this had less stages, but they were split into different parts, like I said.
Mm-hmm. So
it seemed kind of unfair. So yeah, we gave each section a half a point, so it actually gives it 1.5 points for that.
Yeah.
So next up is the desert. So this is a level that's only in the Genesis version, and this is where things get kind of weird. So the Scarab. So it doesn't make any sense. For one, he doesn't even really meet Jasmine. Like that's not even in like the Genesis portion of the story.
Okay. Here's what their story is.
Yeah.
Their story is that Jafar turns into, or actually, no, Aladdin's on the streets, gets arrested there, meets Old Man Jafar. Old Man Jafar sends him to the desert to collect the 2 halves of the scarabs that Jafar never even had.
Yeah.
And then bring them back to Old Man Jafar and then go to the Cave of Wonders.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
Does not make sense. Jasmine's not even in that whole section.
Yeah. So it's
Gazoo didn't exist.
I don't think he got arrested yet. He just ran into the old man on the street.
Oh, I thought he was arrested.
Not yet, because he gets thrown into the dungeon.
Oh
later.
yeah.
So
that's right. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. I never really noticed it as a kid. I didn't think much of it until we started doing this. I was like, wait, that does not happen in the movie whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we had to take away a point for that because it's completely just not relevant to the movie.
It's a completely off story.
Yeah, so the other 2 games just don't get a point whatsoever. It doesn't really count against it.
Yeah.
So next up is the rooftops. So again, each game kind of has a stage like this except for the Super Nintendo version, which I guess you could kind of say it does happen in the streets of Agrabah with the 3 parts.
Yeah.
Well, fine, whatever.
So technically you got a half point in the first section for that.
Yeah, so this one we took half a point away from the Genesis version because, again, this is where he's getting the second half of the Scarab. This didn't happen, so...
For some reason.
Yes, for some reason. The Game Gear version was super cool, though, because actually we kind of skipped over that, because actually what's cool about the Game Gear version is in the streets of Agrabah, you're actually running. It's actually an auto run, so you're running away from the guards, a little bit more like the movie, and then you actually meet Jasmine at the end of the stage. This stage is the rooftops is the second stage. Now you're with Jasmine in disguise, running away. So it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and I also like that when you meet Jasmine, if I'm not mistaken, in the Game Gear game, when you meet Jasmine, you have to battle the guy that she steals the apple.
No, that's the Super Nintendo version.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So, yeah, we've been working on this for a couple of days.
I'm
the games
quite
have gotten
confused.
mixed up. Yeah. So yeah, in the Super Nintendo version, you actually do fight the guy that was threatening to cut off Jasmine's hand. So yeah, the Game Gear gets a point for that. The dungeon. So now Aladdin in the Genesis version has gotten both the pieces of the Scarab, and now he's thrown in the dungeon. So we gave it a point though, because he was thrown into the dungeon. But the other 2 games don't have a dungeon.
Yeah, he just meets him. But they do through, I will say, the other 2 do through storyline.
There are storylines, but
we didn't count storylines. So even though you don't have a dungeon level, he does meet him and go in and do that.
There are cutscenes that kind of piece everything together.
Yeah.
We were trying to make it easier. So each game has a Cave of Wonders, which is to be expected. Not much to say about that. The only reason we gave the Game Gear game, everything got a point, but the Game Gear game got an extra bonus half point because there's a particular section where you're in the treasure room.
Yes.
And I fell for this. I was so mad that I fell for it. There was like some sort of treasure, and I was like, I gotta get that. As soon as I got it, I died.
Yeah, it's a treasure chest.
Yeah.
So every other game you play, all the time, you have to open up the treasure chest to get whatever. You're not supposed to touch anything but
it
the
specifically
lamp.
says that. It's like, touch nothing but the lamp, just like the movie.
It's
She
good.
fell for it.
I did.
And I fell for it. And I was like, you know what? That deserves a half a point.
It was so good. Yeah, that got bonus. It was great.
So after that, each game has like kind of an escape level, and then also escaping on the magic carpet as well.
Yeah.
So each one got a point for that. The Genesis one, I can't really remember much about the other games, but I remember the Genesis version is like the biggest bitch in the world. But it is memorization.
Yeah, and that's the one that starts with the arrows, right?
Yeah, it tells you where to go, and it gets faster and faster and
I
faster.
did pretty good the first time. I mean,
She
I
did
didn't
actually,
beat it, but I did do pretty good.
See, I mean, I've beaten it a couple of times, but you know, it's even to this day I have a hard time with it. So after that, this is where things get kind of weird. So basically, the Genesis and the Super Nintendo version have an inside the lamp level, and both of them play the what's the name of the song?
Best Friend.
Yeah, you never had a friend like me. Yeah,
there it is.
So, but you don't really get sucked into the lamp. Like, actually, both of them lead up to it that you get sucked into the lamp, and it doesn't really happen.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? You're in a cave with this person.
Yeah. So
you rub the lamp, he comes out. I don't understand why you rub the lamp and you get sucked in.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of get where they're going with it a little bit, but the levels are designed to be based on the whole the section of that movie. It's just weird that you get sucked into the lamp. So you know what? We only gave it half a point.
Yeah.
Because we're dicks. Game Gear doesn't actually have a stage like this, so there's that. So here's where the Super Nintendo game kind of veers off course. There's a pyramid stage. So what leads up to this is they've escaped the Cave of Wonders, and apparently Abu can't sit still, falls off the carpet, and Aladdin goes to save him, and now they're in a pyramid.
For some reason.
Yeah. So just like the Sega Genesis, we had to take a point away from that. The other ones just don't get penalized. The carpet ride, though, so the Magic Carpet Ride with Jasmine, Genesis does not have this at all.
Yeah.
There's not a stage for that, but Super Nintendo and the Game Gear does. Now, additional hint, the Game Gear version. First time I played this, I was by myself, and something went across the screen that I was like, whoa, what the hell was that? And I played it again, I was like, oh my god, what the hell is that? So I was like, okay, I'm not going to say nothing, I'm going to have her play it and see what she does. And I meant to film it on my phone, but apparently I don't know how to work my phone. I've only had it for 3 years.
Yeah.
But I noticed what it was looking through the phone, but she thought it was the same thing. What was it?
It was a penis.
It looks like a penis.
Like, I was seriously playing it. I was like, why was there a penis on the screen? And he busts out laughing. And I was like, is that what you wanted me to see? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, I see what it is, though. And I was like, he's like, it's not a penis, though.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's
the Sphinx. It's the Sphinx.
But you have to, like, pause it.
Yeah.
To see that. Because if you're playing it, you got nothing.
I think that's the thing. Like, if you're an outside person, like, you may not notice it in the video, like when I show it, but when you're playing the game, you're focused on Jasmine and Prince Ali, or Aladdin, and it just kind of goes by real quick. The Game Gear got 10 points for that. I'm kidding. It got a point for it. Next up, this is where things get kind of confusing. So, Sultan's Palace. So, this one, like with the Genesis version, you're just in Sultan's Palace. So I don't know if this is supposed to be like the Prince Ali part, or if this is when he's like going there to meet Jasmine. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it kind of happens. So we gave it half a point. But the Super Nintendo version doesn't really have a stage like this at all. The Game Gear version, we actually gave a bonus half point because of the fact that you're actually Prince Ali, which I think is really cool that you actually. Why the Super Nintendo or the Genesis version couldn't have actual Prince Ali?
Yeah, I got nothing.
But the Game Gear does. I don't know. But
they have the music.
Yeah, they have the music for it, but not the actual outfit. So we gave it an extra point for that.
Half point.
Yeah. So next up, this is where things get kind of skewed because Jafar's Palace. So the Game Gear version doesn't really have like a Jafar's Palace where it like changes like the other ones. This one you're like chasing Jafar, but you're still Prince Ali. So,
I have a few problems because I think the one that you're chasing, Jafar, you're supposed to be Prince Ali because it's right after you come out of the water and you're like getting mad at him and going towards him. The other two, I'm assuming, is after Jafar got the lamp and kicked you.
That's what I'm guessing.
And you came back and now you're this, so maybe that's why they skipped the Sultan's Palace thing. I'm not 100% sure, but we did give it the point. Well, the half it's a point and a half. This one, right?
So the Sega Genesis got the additional bonus half point because you noticed something that I had never noticed before. The little trinkets.
Oh, yeah. So when you see the Sultan for the first time and Jafar comes busting in, he's playing with these little animals and he's like stacking them up into a tower and then they fall. Those little trinkets are lined up in the background. They're so cool. I was like,
never
oh my
noticed
God.
it. So we kind of gave that an additional half point.
For detail, man.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I never noticed that as a kid. So each game got a point for that in some way because, I mean, I would assume that Jafar's Palace is when he's chasing him in the Game Gear version.
Yeah.
And then the Super
Or
Nintendo.
at least trying to get to him.
Yeah. And then the Super Nintendo and the Genesis version just have an alternate palace, which, like you said, it kind of happens. Like, I don't really remember this, but I'm assuming it's...
He doesn't necessarily change the palace, but he had, like, red draperies going down, and Aladdin was in red, and he had, like, gold and stuff everywhere. So, like, he had extra stuff.
Yeah.
But he didn't actually make changes to the palace. Like, they made it a lot more elaborate, which would be cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If you, like, walked in there and there's, like, giant serpents everywhere.
Yeah. Now, the Genesis one looks really cool, man.
Yeah.
Where the Super Nintendo, like, kind of looks more like a dungeon, or like an old castle, like, back in the day. So, but I mean, we all gave it a point just to be generous. And then the final battle, each game got a point because he turns into a snake.
Yeah.
We just kind of went with that. The Game Gear game, though, that was the easiest boss battle I've ever fought. I beat him the first time, and I was like, wait, that was it?
Yeah, we didn't count how easy or difficult it was to kill him.
Yeah, no.
We only counted, did he start as Jafar? Did he end as a snake?
Yeah.
That was it.
So we gave it a point.
Yep.
So each game had total possible points of 11.
Mm-hmm.
The Genesis, unfortunately, only got a 6. Yep. That hurt, actually. Mm-hmm. Super Nintendo got a 7. And surprisingly, the Game Gear got 10.
Yeah. It hit everything and got some extra bonuses, and I'm just saying, they did great.
Believe it or not, yeah, the Game Gear version had a lot more to do with the movie. And even between, because every game had like some sort of cutscenes, but a lot of the cutscenes are like stripped right from the movie on the Game Gear version. So I was really shocked. So adding the additional scores of the soundtrack, presentation, and gameplay, the Genesis only got 9. Mm-hmm. Super Nintendo got 10, and the Genesis or the Game Gear got 13. Mm-hmm. But regardless of whether or not it follows the story, they're all great games. Actually, I enjoy playing them all.
They were really fun, and I mean, they were all my first time playing them. So I had a blast playing all of them, and I was kind of bummed because we had to keep like skipping over some sections because, you know, it takes me forever to get through anything.
Yeah.
So we had to skip over so that I could at least test each level. And I was kind of bummed to quit playing them for a while because they were actually a good time. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for watching, guys. Next up, we'll be doing the Lion King.
Yay!
So stick around, and thanks again for watching.
Have a good one.